Pinpoint Weather University, sponsored by Gaston Roofing.
Coming up on this edition of Pinpoint Weather University, are you dreaming of a white Christmas? Well, here in the Carolinas, you're going to have to dream longer. Unfortunately, that's not happening this year, but there could be a few areas in the U.S. that do see snow on Christmas Day. I'll let you know where the best spots for that could be, plus the difficulties of snow forecasting. Winter weather is hard to forecast in general, but there's two phenomena that we've seen over the month of December so far that I want to discuss because they are what are actually leading to some of the snowflakes. Welcome into Pinpoint Weather University. I'm meteorologist Brandon Lawson here on Queen City News Plus. Welcome into all the YouTube viewers as well that we have watching. I will say this is going to be probably our last episode of the year of Pinpoint Weather University, and it comes at a time where we're talking about a flip of the script. We're going from what has been a very cold month of December to more of a warmer end to December. You kind of want those flipped, right? If you're trying to get into the festive spirit of the Christmas season, you think you'd want it to be cold to where you can put on your nice warm pajamas, sit by the fireplace, drink some hot cocoa. But unfortunately, that's not the way Mother Nature has drawn up the script for us this year. It looks like we're going to have the complete opposite. We've had a very cold and active start to December, and now we're going to be ending the month of December off on a warm note. And we're not just going to be doing that here in the Carolinas. It's going to be warm across much of the country as we go through the Christmas season and also towards the new year as well. So we talked about it, dreaming of a white Christmas. You're going to have to keep dreaming here in the Carolinas. That's not happening this year, but I want to talk about where we could see some of those areas of white stuff on Christmas Day for the snow. We'll also talk about the difficulties of snow forecasting as well. Getting into it, white Christmas odds. This map here is essentially showing us what the odds of having a white Christmas are from 0% to 100%, and this was done by the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. It's looking at the odds from 1991 to 2020, so kind of looking at that average. And it might jump out at you that as you get further south, the map is very dark. And as you get further north, you've got a lot of, a little bit of Carolina blue popping up there, a little bit of Duke blue. I don't like that blue, especially as a Tar Heel fan myself. But as you get a little bit further north, you can see not only just the blue colors, but some of the white colors that pop up. And that's highlighting the Rockies there. And that's the sign that they often see white Christmases. And when you get a little bit further south towards Dallas, Houston, Phoenix, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Charlotte, it's dark, the map. And that's a sign that our white Christmas odds are extremely low. I don't want to say 0% because we've seen it before. It can happen. But 1% or less than 1% would be a good way to describe it. Now, when you zoom into the Carolinas, we do have a little bit of blue. You might have guessed where it is, in the mountains across the western Carolinas, up along the Blue Ridge Parkway. That is where we do have a better opportunity of seeing white Christmases around this time of year. Now, it's about a 20 to 30% chance up in the mountains, but unfortunately, even this year, the mountains aren't going to be seeing a white Christmas this year. It looks like it's going to be pretty warm as we go into Christmas. Now, I want to talk about the white Christmases we have seen in the Carolinas. And before I get into this, I want to point something out. A white Christmas is defined by having 1 inch of snow on the ground or more. It doesn't necessarily have to snow Christmas Day itself. There could just be what we call snow depth. So when we measure snow in meteorology, we actually go and we measure the snow, first off, and we measure what's called snow depth. So it's how much snow is still left on the ground after a snowfall event. So let's say snow fell on December 17th and the snow's stacking up. There's a lot of snowfall on the ground from the event, and you measure the snow and it measures about, 3 inches. And let's say you get into December 18th, the next day, and you have to measure the snow again. You're just measuring it to go out there in the grass, and there's still about 1.5 inches of snow left on the ground. We would measure that 1.5 inches and call it snow depth for the day, not necessarily that it snowed the next day as well. But just kind of wanted to get into that a little bit to kind of explain what snow depth is and why 1 inch of snow on the ground still kind of represents a white Christmas. So in Charlotte, 1880, we had 4 inches of snow on the ground Christmas Day. So that was our first ever white Christmas. And then in 1947, we had nearly 6 inches of snow on the ground. Now, these aren't the only days where we've seen snow on Christmas. I shouldn't say the only days, but the only years that we've seen a white Christmas. Technically, when you look at the definition of it, yes, but I don't want to say ignore that definition, but I'm just going to say, hey, we have seen flakes flying around on Christmas Day, and we'll take that in Charlotte because it's already hard to get, considering we're on an over 1,400 day streak of 1 inch or snow or less of snow not even happening. It's been over 1,400 days since we've seen an inch of snow anyway, let alone Christmas Day. So let's talk about the other Christmases that we've actually seen snow in general. So in 2010, we had 0.4 of an inch of snowfall on Christmas Day. In 1909, we had 0.2 of an inch. So yeah, that's measurable snow. Now the rest of these years, you're seeing a T next to them. That means trace. That means that snow fell, but it wasn't measurable. It either didn't stick to the ground or it wasn't piled up enough to where you could measure it at the nearest 1/10 of an inch. So in 2007, we had a trace of snow. And in 1998, we had a trace of snow. So that means it snowed there. We also had that in 1993, 75, 69, 53, 15, and in 1899, we had a trace of snow. So we have seen snow on Christmas Day a total of, count these, this is 10, and then we look at the 2 actual white Christmases, by definition, we've seen 12. So 12 times we've seen snow on Christmas here in Charlotte. That's depressing. I will say that. That's pretty sad when it comes down to white Christmases, if you're a fan of that, especially if you're like moving to Charlotte. Obviously, we've got a lot of people that have moved here to the Queen City or moved to the Carolinas. You might be moving from somewhere up north. I know there's a lot of New Yorkers that move here. I talk to them very often. I was at a New York Knicks Charlotte Hornets game not too long ago, and there were New Yorkers everywhere. And all the New Yorkers I talked to said that they were coming down here to move and leaving New York, and they're living in Charlotte. Allen Iverson was there. And, he's a Philadelphia 76er. He's living down here in Charlotte. And those guys are probably used to snow on Christmas Day, or at least it happening. It's not very rare. But here in Charlotte, it's different. We usually are able to see the grass on Christmas Day. So I do want to talk about what we could be looking at for this Christmas in general. So an early look at Christmas. This is looking at this on December 17th. So this forecast will change. And honestly, it's already changing. So temperatures for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day are likely going to be pushing more towards the upper 60s, if not the low 70s. So yes, it is going to be a very warm pattern for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day this year. Believe it or not, looking at the data we've seen so far for December, when you look at our high temperatures, there is a chance that Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and I say chance because we could get even warmer as we close out the year, but there's a chance that Christmas Eve and Christmas Day could be the warmest days of December. I mean, it's like, what is happening? Yeah, that's a case. We actually are just coming off one of the coldest days of the year so far here in the month of December, on Monday, December 15th. And now here we go, getting towards Christmas, and we're talking about near 70 degrees again. So definitely not going to help you get into a festive spirit when it comes down to the colder weather. But if you're one that's coming in for family or being around family, and you like to really go out and enjoy the Christmas or the holidays with family by throwing the football around, on Thanksgiving Day, we struggle to get out of the 30s and 40s. So you weren't able to do it then. So now we're talking about near 70-degree Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, which might make it a little bit easier to throw the football around. So I do want to kind of show you what the pattern looks like. I've got my stockings up there, my fireplace, although you might not need it here as we go into the Christmas season this year. So I want to show you guys just a look at the climatological outlook for December 25th to December 31st. So this is looking at essentially the last week of the year. And what's going to be happening across the country is that we're going to have what's called an upper level ridge. Essentially just a ridge of high pressure building in over much of the country. We call it kind of a heat dome in the summer months or summer season when you hear that heat dome that's really compressing the air in the upper levels. And whenever you're compressing air, that can lead to warmer temperatures because compression heats up the atmosphere. And essentially, that's what's going to be happening here in the U.S. We're going to be tracking just warmer temperatures across pretty much all of the country, with the exception of maybe the Northeast. So this doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be 90 degrees in the Carolinas, but it definitely means that we're probably going to be seeing above normal temperatures. And I'll zoom in a little bit closer to North Carolina and South Carolina itself, and you can see some of the darker blues there, and that or darker greens. Or man, I can't talk today. I'm not reading the colors right. You can see some of the more darker reds popping up there. That's a sign that there's a higher probability of above average temperatures and more of a lower probability when you get into some of these lighter red and orange colors. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at. A very warm close to December on what has been a very cold start to the month. As a matter of fact, December, the first week, was the 11th coldest start to December we've ever had for the first week. And here we go, ending the month off on what is going to be a pretty warm note. So it'll be kind of interesting to see the last week of December, looking at that average temperature versus the first week of December this year, looking at that average temperature and kind of showing some of that data. If you haven't learned much from me yet, I'm a big researcher. I love looking at stats, data, especially for somebody that grew up here in Concord. I love looking at where we have come from when it comes down to weather. So that's kind of a look at the white Christmas odds. And again, I did tell you I wanted to show you kind of, I showed you that map earlier of the white Christmas odds, but I kind of want to show you not just our region, but the rest of the country. So again, we show the Rockies. This year, if I'm zooming in, now this is looking at an average odd, but I don't have like a necessarily map to show you where we could see a white Christmas. As a matter of fact, let's pull it up in real time right now and see if we can't find just show you some model data. You guys know me. I'm not a big show weather models 100 days out type of guy, but it's Christmas, so I will reward you with it for once. So let's look at the U.S. Let's skip ahead to next Wednesday. And I just want to point out there's not a lot of snow. I mean, there's really not a lot of systems across the country, not as we go into your Christmas Eve and Christmas Day anyway. There's some snow up there towards the northern Rockies. Okay. Maybe a little bit of snow towards the upper Midwest. And that's it. There's not going to be a lot of white Christmases. Maybe a little bit of snow in the Northeast. So this is Christmas Eve. Christmas Day. Not much of a difference. So yeah. That goes to show we're not going to be alone in this Carolinas. We are not going to be alone. Well, coming up next, I've got to chat about it. It is the great snowfall debate of Tuesday, December 11th. It is the great snowfall debate, and it's not December 11th, it's December 9th. So the great snowfall debate of Tuesday, December 9th. Did it snow? Details on that coming up in just a bit. And before we go to break, I'll show you a little bit of the fighting that was going on here at Queen State News on if it snowed or not.
Tell me I'm not crazy. You saw it.
At a certain age, your eyes start to get these floaters.
Marky,
At a certain age, your eyes start to get these floaters. And thank you.
Welcome back into Pinpoint Weather University here on Queen City News Plus and to our YouTube viewers as well. I am meteorologist Brandon Lawson. Let's talk about the great snowfall debate of Tuesday, December 9th. I'm calling it the great snowfall debate because last Tuesday here in our newsroom at Queen City News, there was a big debate on whether it snowed outside or not. Now, we didn't have major snow where it was sticking to the ground, but anytime, as I pointed out in our last segment, anytime you see snow in Charlotte now, it is like, hold on, what is happening? What's going on? It's like that Michael Scott thing where it's like, it's happening, everybody stay calm. So let's talk about the great snowfall debate. So what happened on Tuesday, December 9th is our assistant news director, he walked outside, he saw snow. He texted and he said, oh, it's snowing outside. And everybody in the newsroom was like, oh, there's no way it's snow. There's no, it's not happening. And then our morning anchor, Julian Sador, just happened to go outside and he saw snow. And that's when everybody was like, it's happening. Everybody stay calm. So I want to show you a clip of what he took and posted on his Instagram story about the snow. And Morgan Francis, our anchor of the evening, also got in on the debate. Take a listen.
Tell me I'm not crazy. You saw it.
At a certain age, your eyes start to get these floaters.
Morgan,
At a certain age, your eyes start to get these floaters. And I think you're...
No, seriously, look out. You see it? I just saw another flake. I'm so serious.
There is help available. Oh, wait. Okay.
Now you see it, right?
Yes.
So that was obviously a very it was a funny scenario. And there were a lot of other people that walked outside and was like, yeah, I think I did see a few flakes. So it was fun. I got kind of brought in. So this is almost like a court case, the case of did it snow? And I just happened to get brought onto the jury for this on this snowfall debate that was happening. Now, I do think it did snow. I didn't see it personally. Don't come at me, but I do believe Joy, and I do believe our assistant news director, Brad, and Morgan said she saw it a little bit as well. So I do think it did snow a little bit that day. And there's a weird phenomenon on why this actually happened. It's called a cedar feeder event. Now, I'll let you process this here. A cedar feeder event or process. This is likely what happened here. So this has happened in the Carolinas before, and it can happen. And essentially what happened last week during that day, December 9th, Tuesday, December 9th. I say last week, but just keep in mind, we are recording this on Wednesday, December 17th. So Tuesday, December 9th, this is when this happened. So you've got low clouds down near the surface. There's a lot of moisture in those lower level clouds. And then there's high clouds that are rolling in over top of those lower clouds. Now, those high clouds are actually snowing, but that snow from the high clouds isn't reaching the ground because it's so dry, but they're filling into those lower level clouds, and that is essentially allowing those lower level clouds to precipitate, to get rid of some of those snowflakes, and that causes your snow to happen. So if you've ever heard of cloud seeding, it's essentially Mother Nature cloud seeding itself, but they do it. Mother Nature does it extremely better than us humans could ever do it when it comes down to producing any type of precipitation. Again, cloud seeding happens in some of the drought areas where they need rain, so you essentially are adding condensation nuclei. I'm not going to go too much into it, but you're adding condensation nuclei, which produces those raindrops to clouds that are already present, and that can sometimes produce rainfall. And in this case, Mother Nature is essentially doing this. You've got upper level clouds that are high clouds that are above those lower clouds, and they're essentially feeding those feeder clouds, lower level clouds, the condensation nuclei or moisture that they need to produce snowflakes. It's just something for the moisture to kind of hold on to. So that's the reason why this happened. Now, this is a teaching show, so I'm going to get into it. There's actually a little bit more on this whole topic, right? So this is how this normally happens. But after talking with the folks at the National Weather Service at Greenville-Spartanburg, we think this might have happened in a reverse type of way. Stay with me here. I want to bring you on full camera. Come here for a second. So we actually think that the nuclear station, Catawba Nuclear Station, just there towards Lake Wylie, had steam coming from it. So you have steam coming from that, and that steam actually filled into those clouds to produce those snowflakes across west and southwest Charlotte. So that's why we think the flakes actually occurred. It wasn't necessarily in this case due to high clouds. It was just that reverse mode where you have that steam coming out from the Catawba Nuclear Station over towards Lake Wylie. That steam filled into those lower clouds, and then those lower clouds were able to snow the snowflakes out. So I know it's a lot. That was a lot for me to even say. Hopefully you were able to understand all of that, but that was something I wanted to get into because I just thought it was cool. And you're here because you love weather and you love to learn. So that was a kind of a cool weather thing I wanted to explain here. So let's get into another phenomenon. I keep doing phenomenon. Let's get into a phenomenon that also happens when it comes down to winter weather. And it is called our mountain snowfall, upslope snow. So what we see happen a lot, what happens a lot in the winter is that we get what's called mountain northwest snowfall events. So let's get into the next teaching here. This is what that looks like. Essentially, you have upslope snow, and how that occurs is moisture is being pulled up the mountain. That continuous stream of moisture rises over the mountain. Stronger lift can create heavier snow because what's happening with that air is as it rises, that moisture is cooling, it's condensing. So rising air cools and condenses, that produces your clouds, and then eventually you get your snow to occur. This happens a lot on the northwest facing slopes of the mountains. Essentially, you get northwest flow up against the northwestern slopes, facing slopes, and that produces your snowfall. So I know I was kind of a mouthful there, but essentially, here's your northwest facing mountains. Here's your northwest flow. The air is going up the mountain. As that air goes up the mountain, condenses as it gets higher up, produces those clouds. Then those clouds eventually produce your precipitation. We saw this actually, the same process happen during Helene, except it was the opposite way. You have the air coming in towards technically the other side, on the eastern side of the mountain. All that moisture is pressing up against the mountain. It's rising over the mountain there, and all that rain is kind of coming down the eastern slopes. And that's what's producing a lot of those mudslides and obviously the catastrophic flooding in that situation. But this also can happen in the winter in the form of snow. The reason it's more of a mountain northwest snowfall event, because you've got your colder air coming in from the northwest, and that's what produces your snow. I mean, obviously, if the air is coming in more from the southeast, and the air is rising over the mountain from the southeast and rising, it's typically a warmer flow for us. So you're going to get a little bit more rain out of that versus snow on the northwest facing slide or northwest facing slopes there. So just kind of want to get into that. Most of you know that, especially if you live up in the mountains. But if you ever hear us talk about northwest upslope snow showers, that's what's happening there. Northwest flow is pressing up against the mountains, and that is producing that snow as it lifts up the mountain, cooling and condensing the air. Now, I do also want to point out, if you get stronger lift, that can also lead to heavier snowfall, because the stronger the lift is, the more air you're rising, cooling and condensing, and more precipitation that cloud is able to put out. So that's a look at upslope snow in the mountains. We also talked about cedar feeder, but we got just a little bit more to talk about on the other side, my friend. Welcome back into Pinpoint Weather University. One more thing to chat about. It is the cold weather advisory and extreme cold warnings. These were just introduced last year by the National Weather Service. They changed things up. It used to be the wind chill advisories and wind chill warnings, but now we've got what's called extreme cold warnings and cold weather advisories. And we actually just saw one here in the Charlotte area just recently. And I wanted to talk about why this change was made. So essentially, cold weather is cold weather, regardless of if it's windy or not. Now, what does that mean? So wind chill alerts were only issued when wind was happening. The new cold weather alerts, you don't need wind. So if I told you it's going to be 2 degrees outside, you're going to dress extremely warm. If I told you it's going to be 10 degrees outside, but the wind chill is going to feel like 2 degrees, you're still going to want to dress warm for that. But one of those cases, we wouldn't have been able to issue anything for that. The National Weather Service wouldn't be able to do anything about that. So now, when it's 2 degrees outside, regardless of if there's wind or not, and I'm just using 2 degrees as an example, there's actually specific criteria for this. But if it's 2 degrees outside, regardless if it's a wind chill or an air temperature, we're going to still have the alerts out, because cold weather is cold weather, no matter how it's happening. So that's why they changed this, and that's what those cold weather advisories mean. So this was the first time I believe we actually saw it here in the Charlotte area. So I did want to talk about that just for a moment. So looking at the cold weather advisory criteria, 10 degrees is what we need to get down to in Charlotte for cold weather advisories to be issued. Now, it's not just 10 degrees air temperature, it's also 10-degree wind chill. So let's say the air temperature is 10 degrees. You're going to have your cold weather advisory. But let's say the wind chill drops to 10 degrees. You still have the cold weather advisory. Statesville's 5 degrees for that. Same with Hickory. And in Boone, 5 below zero, because obviously it gets colder there anyway. And then extreme cold warnings, it needs to be 0 degrees in Charlotte, or you need to have a wind chill of 0 degrees for extreme cold warning, 5 below in Statesville and 5 below in Hickory for the wind chill or the air temperature, and then Boone, 15 below for the air temperature or the wind chill. So that is going to do it for Pinpoint Weather University here on this episode. Again, likely going to be our last episode of the year as we get through the holidays. Enjoy Christmas, enjoy the New Year's, enjoy your family. I always sign off with take care of yourself and each other, because yes, we can take care of ourselves, but we also got to take care of each other as well. So take care of yourself, take care of each other as we navigate this earth together and get closer to a new year in 2026. Close it out strong, my friends.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.